a very special welcome to our 3 endorsed candidates. This evening is being brought to you as a joint initiative by the Santa Ana Educators Association and the Classified School Employees Association, 2 labor unions with a common goal to support and enrich education in the city of Santa Ana for the students and families of Santa Ana. My name is Steve Gorgoni. I'm a science teacher at Santa Ana High School and a member of Santa Ana Educators Association, SAEA. We're so happy that you're with us all tonight.
Good evening, guys. My name is Erica Pereira from CSEA. I am a library and media tech at McFadden Intermediate. I am also a labor union sister. We are so excited that all of you have taken time out of your busy schedule to tune into our forum to have an evening of fun with us. This evening we will be co-hosted by two of us, pardon me, and we'll take turns helping you get to know the candidates.
We have a busy night ahead of us and we have no time to waste. But before we get started, we'd like to take a little time to talk about the candidates from our point of view.
These 3 school board members are truly a team in every way. They have consistently worked together for the common goal of raising the bar for education in the Santa Ana Unified School District. They've acted as a team when it came to the district's COVID response, and they've been acting as a team before that when working through decisions that affect the health and well-being of our students and families here in the city. But I'm sure they could tell you all about that. So I'm going to hand that off to them shortly.
I now have the distinct honor of introducing the incumbent candidates. Let's start with the current school board president, Dr. Rigo Rodriguez, followed by school board trustee, Ms. Carolyn Torres, and finally, school board trustee, Dr. Alfonso Alvarez. We really appreciate the time you've donated with us tonight. I hope you have fun, and I hope we can all get to know you a little bit better.
Thank you all for being here tonight. The 3 of you, both CSEA and SAEA, deeply appreciate it. Tonight's event will progress like a forum. We will not be asking any questions regarding policy matters in recognition of the Brown Act. We will, however, be asking you some very personal questions. I hope you all don't mind.
We'll start by having the candidates introduce themselves. That will be followed by a series of questions where each of you will be asked the question and each of you will be given an opportunity to answer it. You are encouraged to talk to each other when appropriate. Just try not to take over the conversation if you can. That will be followed by a lightning round and finally an opportunity to give closing statements to our audience here tonight.
Without further ado, let's get this show on the road. We will start with opening statements and we'll go one at a time. We would like each of you to remind us who you are, share your occupation, and talk a little bit about your status as incumbents in this election. You'll have 1 minute each. Let's start with our current school board president, Dr. Rodriguez, followed by Ms. Carolyn Torres, and then finally, Dr. Alfonso Alvarez. President Dr. Rodriguez.
Well, good evening, everyone. And to Steve and Erica, thank you so much for co-hosting tonight, and to SAEA and CSEA for providing us an opportunity to share who we are. I am the current board president. My occupation is I'm a professor at Cal State Long Beach, and I'm also the chair of the Department of Chicana and Latino and Latina Studies at Cal State Long Beach. I'm an incumbent. I am running again for this office because I just want to continue making a difference. So thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Carolyn Torres.
Hey, thank you, everybody. I'm so honored to be here for the all of our staff, both are certificated and classified. I think this is a really cool idea. Thank you for inviting me. So I'm a teacher. I teach 8th grade U.S. history. I was teaching 7th grade last year, and prior to that, I was teaching 10th grade. I'm also a long time. My family's been in Santa Ana for a really long time, so I love Santa Ana. This is really my community. And then being on the board, I'm finished. I haven't even circled my first full year, but it's felt like 10 years because of how much stuff has going on. But I really think my time on the board has been noticed. I really hope that I'm bringing this kind of educator in the school system kind of perspective to the board, and I hope to continue to do that. So thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Alvarez.
Hi, I wanted to thank everybody for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here with us today. I wanted to thank SAEA and CSEA for providing this opportunity, and I wanted to thank our hosts, Erica and Steve. I am Dr. Alfonso Alvarez. I'm a social worker by profession, and I am currently running for re-election. I'm an incumbent. I look forward to being re-elected. During my first 4 years, I felt that I made a great impact, and I want to continue making an impact in Savannah.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for those informative opening statements. We can't wait to get to our questions here. This next round is where we get to know a little bit more about the candidates here. These questions were created by members in our respective associations, and I hope we don't get too personal. Well, let's see what happens.
This round will consist of about 10 questions, depending on the time. We will ask each candidate a question and allow the candidate to respond. Please feel free to add or respond to each other after something has been said. Just like if we're having a coffee together, you're here in my living room, we're just gonna have a conversation. Let's start with Ms. Carolyn. We will change the order after each question. We will start with Ms. Carolyn Torres, then Dr. Alfonso Alvarez, and finally, Dr. Rigo Rodriguez.
All right, are you guys ready?
Here we go.
Okay, first up, Ms. Carolyn Torres, where did you grow up? Share with us a little bit about your childhood and your family.
So my family has been in Santa Ana for about 90 years, and I've grown up in Santa Ana off and on. I think one of the things I have really done with my life since I was in college is be very transparent with my story and the kind of trauma that I come from, because I think it's important for folks not to be ashamed of whatever they experienced growing up. And so my family was a longtime Santa Ana family. You know, in poverty, a lot of things, a lot of love, but also a lot of mental health issues and drug use. So my parents were actually heroin addicts. My dad died when I was young from a car accident. My mom died in her 40s. And so I didn't really have parents. I don't really know what it's like to have parents past 10 years old. And I had to go live with my aunt. And so because of those situations, I would be in Santa Ana, then be in Garden Grove, then be in Bueno Park, then be back in Santa Ana, then be in Anaheim. And so I would go to like 3 or 4 schools a year, just bouncing around. And then I lived in Riverside County for a little bit when I had to go stay with my aunt. And so that's kind of what my childhood was like. And I wasn't in isolation. Pretty much my whole generation, all my cousins, all of our parents didn't raise us. We all just kind of raised each other, living with different relatives or different cousins. And so, I'm the only one that graduated high school. I'm the only one that went to college. I'm the only one that got a master's. And I'm one of the youngest out of like 30 kids. I'm right at the bottom of the generation of all the cousins. And so it's been an experience, and my family is really, really proud of me. And sometimes I forget my sister. I always like to share this with my sister whenever I'm down on myself, like, oh, I didn't accomplish enough, or I did this. And she's like, listen, Carolyn, your mother was a heroin addict that abandoned you. Like, stop. You know. And I'm like, oh yeah. So like that kind of trauma, there's a lot of like shame. And so that's why I'm really, really open with my story, because a lot of people share my story, and I don't want anybody to ever feel ashamed of where they come from, or feel like they're going to be judged based on like the kind of family upbringing they have. Because my family had a lot of love, but they had a lot of trauma, right? And so you just try to pick the positive pieces. But yeah, so that's pretty much my life. And then I went to college and struggled forever until I finally got a teaching job and finally got steady income. And that was only like 8 years ago when I finally got a salary teaching position. So that's a little bit about my story.
Well, that's an amazing story, and
Truly.
it's just amazing to see where you're at now.
Yes.
Dr. Alfonso Alvarez, you're up next. Where did you grow up? Share a little bit about your childhood and family.
Oh man, growing up, we moved around a lot, especially during the elementary years. When I went to Monroe, we lived in my grandfather's garage. When I went to Diamond, we lived in my uncle's living room. After that, I went to Roosevelt. And then after Roosevelt, I lived at 3 houses away from Fremont. From there, I went on to Spurgeon Intermediate, and I went to Santa Ana High School. A quick story, I didn't graduate with my class. I gave up in the second semester at high school because growing up, all I saw was gangs, drugs, violence, poverty, institutionalized racism, institutionalized discrimination. And on top of that, I had a teacher in junior year that told me that I would not succeed in the four-year university, that I should not attempt it, and that I should learn to do something working with my hands. So I gave up. I joined the Army, ended up in Fort Benning, Georgia. While in boot camp, I lost 40% of my hearing in my right ear. So I got a medical discharge. And when I came back to Santa Ana, I had to make a decision. Do I conform to what people think that a Mexican American is supposed to do professionally, occupationally? Or do I try to do something better? So because of that, I went on to get my bachelor's, my master's, my doctorate. I got a presidential appointment in 2014 to the Selective Service Board. And now that I'm here, now that I've made it, I see it as my obligation to pay it forward to the community.
Excellent. Thank you. That is an amazing story, too. Dr. Rigo Rodriguez, I apologize about that. It is your turn next. You're on the hot seat. Where did you grow up? Share a little bit about your childhood and family, please, if you don't mind.
Well, when you hear the stories from Carolyn and from Alfonso, I hope people can understand why it's just amazing and wonderful to be in their company. And when you come from our communities and our histories, there's something that really just binds you, that you're here for a bigger purpose than just yourself. And so on my end, I'm the youngest of 13 from a farm worker family. Grew up in Salinas, California. And for me, it was just normal to always have 20 people in the house, because there were folks from Mexico who would always stay at our place temporarily, but temporary means like a year or two, not like a weekend or anything. And so always people in and out of our house. My mom and dad probably were the stepping stone for many people from our rancho. And my dad would work from February to October in Salinas. And then from October, when it would start to rain, he would and my mom would go back to Mexico till February, and they would take the youngest 3 of us down there. So from when I was born all the way till I was 7 years old, we would spend half the time down there, the other half in the United States. And the thing is that when my parents would take us down to Mexico, and my dad and mom only went to like maybe 1 year or 6 months of school, they wouldn't put us in school down there. We would literally just spend 4 or 5 months, October through February, just in the ranch or in the pueblito, just hanging out. Later on, I realized that's the Montessori method, the Waldorf method. And then we'd come back, and when we were in when I got into the 2nd grade, the principal told my dad that, he couldn't be doing that, right? So I think that that really just shaped me, because I've always been the type of person that loves to just learn on his own. And I think that there's something really powerful about that younger age. And just like I think one thing that I think is common in our experience is just the constant movement. I went to 4 different high schools in 4 years. And just like Alfonso's experience of going from one school to the other, or going from Santana to Garden Grove to Buena Park, right? This movement across different systems and places, I think just marks my experience around educational systems. It was a very fragmented experience. And I think that for some kids, that's still normal. And so the more we can do to help that, the better. But anyway, that's a little bit about my.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
the 3 of you guys.
Powerful stories. I'm sorry, Erica.
No, indeed. Thank you, Steve. You're just reading my mind here. Off to the second question. We will start with Dr. Alvarez. Who did you look up to during your earlier years, and why?
I would have to say that I really looked up to my dad, because he taught me the true meaning of servant leadership. before servant leadership was a buzzword. My dad was on the board of the Delhi Community Center from the time it opened up to 1986. And in addition to that, he would also volunteer at the Delhi Church. So growing up in our family, we were the kids that were there setting up for events, cleaning up after events, you know, and I think that truly gave me a different perspective. And I feel that that experience shaped me and helped me become who I am. You know, my philosophy, my belief is that I have to pay it back. Everybody that makes it has an obligation to pay it back, because the only way that we're going to succeed as a community is if we work together as a community.
Thank you. Dr. Rodriguez, who did you look up to during your earlier years and why?
I want to say that my mom was 4'2", I think. Just, you know, very tall if you measure her from the sky down, right? And so I looked up to perhaps the shortest person ever, but who was just incredibly powerful. She had 13 kids and just was able to be the anchor in our family. And just like Alfonso's dad, my mom, every time we went back home, we would take these army bags full of clothes and other stuff, and we would ask why. We don't need any of that for our, no, it's for your tia, for your cousins. And so all this, and imagine having to pass aduana with all that stuff, right?
Oh my goodness.
And we all of course traveled on Greyhound and Tres Estrellas and, you know, but yeah, this deep value around servant leadership. And then, so that's why I looked up. I just want to say something about Delhi Center too, because I didn't know that about you, Alfonso, and your dad, but you know, I started in Delhi Center when I graduated in 1994, and for 25 years I was there really involved, and it marked my life as well. I'm glad that you were there even before I was.
Another thing you guys have in common now, that's wonderful. Miss Carolyn Torres, who did you look up to during your earlier years and why?
So I really looked up to my aunt, and she was the one who raised me from about 10 to, I would say, 16-ish before things started to get bad again. But she was the one to provide me with a couple years of stability. So for my middle school years, I had what I would consider a somewhat normal life. I had my aunt and her husband. I went on field trips. I stayed at one school. And so that's kind of my marker for what it is to have somewhat of stability. And then my aunt also, remember, all of most of her siblings, and there was a bunch of them, you know, were struggling with various things, right? And she took in almost everybody's kids at different points in time. Like she was this person who took in a lot of kids, and there was always kids around. It was always a big family, and it was always like a lot of fun in between all the stuff that happened that wasn't fun. And so I really looked up to her, and she was also a model of how to balance that, because she let everybody take everything from her and she left nothing for herself. Wow. And so my lesson has been trying to balance those things, like being a servant without like bleeding yourself dry. Right. And then I also had my cousin, Melissa, who was one of the oldest cousins of all of us. And she took off when she was a teenager because she just couldn't live in that constant turmoil. And she made her own path, moved to San Francisco. And when I was a teenager, she was like my light. She would fly me up to go see her, and I would escape all the raids and all the stuff that was going on in my house. And I would have this whole other experience with her, going to like the exploratorium and like this whole other world that she was exposing me to, because she had kind of escaped a little bit early on. And so it was really good. And so we have a different, her experience with Santana is a lot more traumatic. She associates it more with trauma, and I associate it more with like family. So even though we have a different understanding of Santana, she was still someone who provided a different idea of what it looks like to live your life and what your life can look like. And so both of those were very strong women in my family.
That's wonderful. Steve?
So our next question, and let's start with Dr. Rigo Rodriguez first. How do you define community, and what activities are you involved in with your community?
Yeah, so for me, just out of experience of in life, I just see community as people with a common purpose and a common practice that we hold each other to, our values. And so for me, I'm part of different communities, but one of them in Santa Ana is a community, and maybe I'll talk more in detail about this, but really early education, as I shared earlier, early education influenced my life. And so one of those is the Santa Ana Early Learning Initiative, and just a lot of parents and partners that are just involved in promoting early education for our kids, for our familias. So that's one I'm very proud of.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, very wonderful. All right, how about Dr. Alfonso Alvarez? How do you define community, and what activities are you involved in with your community or communities?
I'm a social worker by profession, so my definition of community is almost like an extended family. Because if we truly are a community, we're looking out for each other, we're helping out each other. I work full time. When schools were open, being a school board member was also a second full-time job. So I had to cut back on a lot of my community activities, but there's two things that I will never give up on. One of them is I still mentor high school kids and university kids. I have two graduate students that finished their masters, and they want me to help them with their doctorate. And the fulfilling thing about it is getting to know them over the years and seeing them grow. I'm a big supporter, and I'm also an advisor for Santa Ana Youth in Government. And I fell in love with those kids. You know, the first time that I was invited to speak, I went there thinking I was going to inspire these kids, and they ended up inspiring me. You know, hearing their stories and how they were determined to succeed, and I started mentoring some of those kids, and some of those kids I've known them for 4 or 5 years. Before I got on the school board, I met a lot of the youth and government kids. I was fortunate enough that I got to travel to Sacramento with them this year. Every year they compete in the YMCA Model Legislature and Moot Court program, and I had the opportunity to travel with them. I'm really proud. One of our graduating seniors, she ranked 15 out of 250. The only reason she didn't, in her competition, it was the toughest competition. The only reason she didn't get any higher is because they stopped the competition because they ran out of time.
Wow.
And the cool thing is that there were 3,500 students there, 3,500 kids. There were hundreds of advisors. And the cool thing is having the advisors come up and telling me or asking me, telling me how great the kids are. And second, asking me how we're doing this. You know, kids from Santa Ana competing in Sacramento against 3,500 kids. And I'm really proud of them because I've watched them grow. A lot of them want to go on to universities, and several of them have told me that they want to get a doctorate because I have a doctorate. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
You know that he's lying because he said that he got inspired, but you also inspired them, right? So you inspired those students to be doing this. So I was just joking that you're lying. I'm saying that I think you inspired them as well, because you know you can't have those outcomes without the effect that you have with them. So my hat off to you.
Completely agree.
Yeah, that's one of the beautiful things about this field, right? That it's just the students are amazing and they give back all the time. And to our teacher, Miss Carolyn Torres, would you define community for us and tell us about the activities you're involved in with your communities?
So defining community is one of my favorite philosophical ponderings. And it was actually part of my thesis when I interviewed a bunch of folks on like identity and conceptualizing community specifically from Santa Ana. And because it was how do people understand their community? There's like racial, ethnic communities. There's like any other identities, like a skater community, or like if you're part of the punk scene, like that's a community, and there's geographic communities, both in terms of like nation states and cities. So it's a really broad thing for me, but generally like it's Santa Ana. Like it's Santa Ana and it's all the surrounding cities of Santa Ana, because a lot of people who live in Santa Ana have cousins in Anaheim, have cousins in Garden Grove. I know in my family, we go back 90 years in Santa Ana, and we've had consistent family here in Santa Ana for that time, but we also have a branch in La Habra. We also had a branch that went to Anaheim. We had a branch that we went to Orange, right? And so there's all of these kind of communities. And then I also feel like I'm part of this kind of activist community. I've been part of it for quite a while. And that's where most of my community work has been involved in, specifically dealing with like, you know, heavy policing or school to prison pipeline, or putting people on gang lists without due process, a lot of civil rights heavy work. And then also helping people to navigate systems that are confusing, both intentionally and unintentionally. And so that's one of the reasons I want to be on the school board, because so many people have issues in the school, but they don't know how to address it. And because the systems are they're so confusing for folks, right? And so part of my role, I think, as an educator is to make things less confusing. And so that's what my goal is. And when I think of my community, I think like, what is the diversity within my community, and how do I make sure that there's access or things make sense to folks within all different backgrounds within the community. And so that's how I see community.
A little bit of scaffolding, right?
Yeah, all about the scaffold.
Right?
Scaffold your life.
Very much, very much.
Looking like a true teacher.
Miss Carolyn, do you mind if I start with you this time?
Sounds good.
Perfect. What are you most passionate about, and how do you use that passion in your everyday life? You pretty much just shared something very passionate.
Yeah.
But you can either add to it or just share anything other.
I'm a super nerd. Like, I love history. I love like community stories. I love like education and pedagogy. It's just, you know, I really love it. Like anything that's intellectually stimulating, I'm like all over it. When I learn about different cultures, I love learning about different groups and all the diversity within a group. Like I'll go on like the Google, you know, rabbit hole when I learn about a different community within a community that I'm not a part of. And I'm like, what is this? And I try to feel like, oh, it's like this over here in our community. We have that drama too, you know? And so like, it's really, I love like learning that kind of stuff. I love being creative with systems and trying to create like, how do we have an involved community and a community base in a way that's fun and not exhausting? Like how do we recreate systems that already exist without imposing anything on folks, but with also expanding like the breadth of what they're already working on? Because right. A lot of our communities, I've been going, and other folks, Alfonso too, I've seen them at the Kermeses every weekend. We've been campaigning, and those things are beautiful to like sit there and every weekend we know we're going to go to a kermesse because there's bound to be one somewhere. And on one hand, it's beautiful. And on the other hand, it also shows what needs are not being met, and that we as a community have to be part of that. And so it's like thinking about those things and really like figuring out like how to fit pieces together. That's like my huge passion. It's super nerd. Like it's
love it. I love
trying
it.
to pretend I'm a nerd.
Doctor,
and I take it as a term of pride.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We can feel it.
Dr. Rigo, what are you most passionate about, and how do you use that passion in your everyday life?
I once commented that Carolyn makes nerdy policy making look great. I mean, it's just, and it's great because, that's what policy making is about. It's not about sound bites. It's about like really getting into the details. And so I really appreciate that so much. And I think for me, I really don't talk about this big passion of mine because I just do it. And that's that I really love and I'm passionate about building a just society, just a just society. And the one kind of thread throughout my whole life has been around dismantling racism and in particular and other systems of oppression. But that's really the like everything that I've done. So my undergraduate, I was a coalition that forced the university to fund and create the ethnic studies departments that are now there. And so that was like 4 years of my life. And then I decided that I was just, that the university really didn't give me the education that I wanted because there was such a big gap in terms of knowledge around ethnic studies that I decided to take at least 4 to 5 years working in the community to build my knowledge from the community. And so I jumped into community organizing in Santa Ana, but largely around the Delhi neighborhood. And that's where I started working in Delhi Center. And then I decided to come back and really develop a deeper understanding of what happens in cities. So I got a master's in urban planning because there are people in the city who use certain tools to get things done. And so I was just thinking about who are they? What do they do? So I got a master's in urban planning. So also you'll see the thread of nerdiness as well with me here, and because it's really driven by intellectual questions, right? It's not just about hatred towards this and that. It's about, so how did these systems develop in the first place? And so there's a history to urban planning. There's a history to the set of tools, whether that's redevelopment, land use, and those sorts of things.
Right.
And I realized that a master's degree was not enough, to really understand that. So I went on and got my doctorate, another 7 years of reading intensively about race, about history, and now I've worked in the Chicano Studies department. My professors for my dissertation wanted me to apply to these Research One universities, UCLA, Harvard, and all that stuff. And I said, yeah, I will, because I wanted to get them off my back. But I knew I wanted to go to a Cal State, because that's where our community is at. Whether it's Cal State Fullerton, Cal State LA, Cal State Long Beach. I was just fortunate to get into Cal State Long Beach. And so when I think about what I'm passionate about, I usually don't go out and say, hey, I'm an activist and this and that. But I honor those who do that. But when I really look back at my life and where I spend most of my time, it's really around how do we dismantle systemic racism and do it in a way that builds new systems. And so when we look at the school district, that's also a lens that I use. But people are in a different space when it comes to these issues, and you have to kind of approach them with a lot of sensitivity. And I'm so glad that this board and my colleagues here, I think, have a deep appreciation of both building a just society, a just system, and knowing what it takes to get there. So long-winded response.
Thank you, Dr.
That's the problem with asking us that question. We can't.
It's great. It's passionate. It's passion. That's wonderful. Thank you. Dr. Alvarez, what are you most passionate about, and how do you use that passion in your everyday life?
My passion is seeing our children thrive and seeing our community thrive. I'm a social worker by profession. I've been doing this for 25 years. My superpower is being a social worker. And the thing is, as a social worker, I've come to realize whether it's a kid or an adult, there's two things that everybody needs to succeed. They need the adequate resources and they need the support. I've been reflecting a lot on how I got here to where I am, as an elected official, as a doctor, with the presidential appointment. And the commonality or the thing that I have found is that support is a big thing. As I was going through, I went to school at Chapman University. The student population was 7% minority. So I was out of place in my own backyard. I felt out of place in my own backyard. But I had a Dr. Luis Ortiz Franco, who took me under the wings and mentored me, and even when I went on to for my doctorate, I was scared, because the thing is, I'm doing something new. Nobody can relate to it. I can't go to my neighbor and say, hey, I'm working on meditation. Can you help me out? I can't. You know how hard it was on the phone and say, hey, I need help? But I was fortunate enough that I knew a couple of people, Santaneros, that had doctorates. And they picked me up whenever I felt like giving up. Dr. Vitor Cota, I called him up one time and I said, I can't do this. I don't know how to do this. I'm giving up. And he met with me. He picked me up. He said, hey, you know what? Stop thinking that way. You didn't get here just to get all the way here. So he helped me. He was a big support. But the thing is, everybody can succeed if they have the support and the resources that they need. And I think that a big component, a big part of success for our kids or for anybody in general is having that support system, having people that believe in you, believing that there's a caring human being in your life. And through my experience as a social worker, I have come to realize that is an important element. And that's my story.
Thank you. That's wonderful. Thank you.
And if you don't mind, Dr. Alvarez, we're going to go to you first because you kind of touched on this a little bit, and we're gonna dive into your teachers now because you guys are school board members. So what is the most memorable thing one of your teachers have done? Do you have a shout out for any of the teachers and why? You've already kind of shouted out a few over there, but what is one memorable thing teacher's done? And if you have any more shout outs, please, Dr. Alvarez.
You know, I mentioned earlier a little bit that in order to succeed, you need the resources and support. I didn't graduate with my class. Like I said, I ended up in Fort Benning, Georgia. I got a medical discharge from the Army. I came back to Santa Ana before the end of the first semester. So the first thing that I did is I went to Santa Ana High School. I met with the principal and I begged. I said, my Army career didn't work out. I said, I don't have a high school diploma. And I begged. And he knew that I messed up, but he believed in me. So he made me write a contract. He gave me a second chance. But let me back up first to when I was in my sophomore year at Santa Ana High School, there was this teacher, Mr. Nickel. That was a long time ago, so I'm sure he's not around. So I had him in 10th grade for English. And he was the type of teacher that would look out after all the kids. You know, he would follow them. So I met him in the 10th grade. In the 11th grade, you know, he saw me walking down the hall. He said, hey, come on down. And he encouraged me to get into drama. And then not only that, but he was also there as a mentor for me. And the one thing that I really appreciate about him is that when I told him that I was giving up in school and joining the Army, he tried to talk me out of it. And he tried to talk me into graduating. He tried to talk me into not joining the Army. He was a Vietnam War veteran. So he's seen all that, and his position was, you don't know what's gonna happen in the future, go get your education, you know, and I didn't listen to him. So I joined, and when I came back, the first thing that I did is when I saw him on campus, I said, hey, you know what? I learned from my experience, you're right, you know, but it comes down to having a caring human being, having a caring teacher, you know, and that's what helps our kids thrive. And that's my story.
Thank you very much. That's a very powerful story. How about Miss Carolyn Torres? What about you? What is your most memorable thing one of your teachers have done for you? And if you have a shout out for stuff, one of them.
Yeah, I have a teacher, her name is Miss Nagley. She was my 10th grade AP European history teacher. Mm-hmm. And my 10th grade year was horrible. That was a year that I was ditching. I was running away for like weeks at a time. Like, you know, I had been a good student in GATE, like A, like the one in my family who's gonna make it, like all the way from kindergarten all the way to high school. I was like the one that was gonna make it. And the pressure was too much and my family was falling apart. We were getting drug busts at my house and like just all kinds of stuff. And it was just too much. I was like, forget it. What's the point of trying? Blah, blah, blah. And so I was running amok in school. I would show up sometimes, but I was ready to give up. I was starting to drop all my honors and AP classes. And hers was the only class I didn't drop. And it was because she noticed when I was gone, but didn't hassle me about it. So there were other teachers that didn't even notice that I was gone. Like, you know, and when I dropped my classes, didn't even care. And then there was her who, she would see me come in late and I was such a brat about it. I would come with McDonald's and she was like my third period teacher and I would stroll in all like attitude. And so I would come in and she would just be like, oh, hey, and just welcome me and not give me any grief about it. And I didn't come to her class all the time, but I always came for the tests. So even though I wasn't at school, I knew a test was coming up and I would read really quick and I would get an A on the tests because I wanted to pass her class even though I was barely there. And so I would show up for the test and she always made me feel welcome. And we're Facebook friends now. She's teaching at some, I think like a private school in Estonia, like in Europe, and it's very particular. I think it's a different kind of school. But yeah, so she was there and I had a similar teacher when I got into another kind of program because I was thinking of dropping out, and I responded to a flyer. And another teacher, same kind of thing. I was coming to school not in good headspace, but I would still show up sometimes, and he would just let me be and treat me as if I'd always been there. And that was Mr. Hale, and he was my history teacher as well. And so I try to remember that when I get frustrated if my students are missing class, because I remember I felt welcome every time I went, even if I hadn't been there, even if I had an attitude. So those are teachers I think about.
And that's that personal touch, right? That means everything. That's very powerful. What about you, Dr. Rodriguez?
Hands down, Mr. Roy Michaels, the 3rd through the 6th grade. As I told you, up until my 2nd grade, we were just like, not even technically in school. But my parents moved, and in the 3rd grade, I went to grade school. And for 4 years, I had 4 continuous years there. He was incredible, very creative. He was both the principal and the teacher. So it was only about 100 kids in that school, from the rural outskirts of the Salinas Valley. So all of us were farm worker kids that went to that one school that no one else wanted to take us. So we went there.
Right?
And yeah. So for example, we had to show up every day with a current event. So we forced our parents to subscribe to the newspaper. And we'd wake up at 6 in the morning, read current events, because you had to be ready to say something that someone else hadn't said before. So I was talking about like Uganda and Idi Amin, and you're 3rd, 4th, 5th grader. You don't know what you're doing, but you do it just because it's fun, and you have to we had squiggles every week, which means he would do a squiggle. We'd have to develop paint a picture out of that, and then write a story every single week. So a lot of writing. And then he gave us permission to sue the book. And if you ever had a math problem that the book said was incorrect, but you thought it was correct, you could go over there and sue the book and give him your best case. That came in handy because in the 6th grade, my father retired. At the end of my 6th grade, my dad retired, and we went back to Mexico. And I just remember that those 4 years, I remember this experience being so fun, but I remember feeling like I was smart. Like every kid in our school was smart. It was like there was no one was not smart. And by smart, we could make sense of things, right? And when I went to Mexico, I was put in the 6th grade again. I'm like, no, I'm going to go into the 7th grade. And so the principal at that secundaria forced my parents to take me to Guadalajara to take an exam.
Wow.
And based on that exam, I either was going to stay in the 6th grade or move up to the 7th. And so my older brother took me to take the exam. A week later, we went there, and I failed the exam. That's what the guy told me. And so my older brother, who grew up in Mexico, said, "Oh, I'm sorry, Rigo. Well, we're just going to have to leave. And, it's okay. You're going to do 6th grade again." I'm like, "No, I want to see my exam," right? And so my brother said, "Why?" And I said, I want to see my exam. I know I didn't fail, right? So the administrator, so my brother finally got on my side, and he asked the administrator, "Yeah, let's see his exam." And then the administrator said, "Oh, he failed the math exam." I'm like, "Well, show me," right? And so he shows me the exam, and I look at the answer. I'm like, "No, this is right. I know it's right." And so my older brother, who's good at math, looked at it and said, "Yeah, no, that's right." So eventually the administrator realized, like in Mexico, we use this thing called, they, la mordida, which means you're supposed to pay, right? That's what the guy was really wanting us to do, is to pay, but no, I sued the book. And it was so inculcated in me that I was advocating for myself. I saw the answers, and the guy gave me a C, but it was the best C. It's the only C I've ever gotten in my life, but it was a magical C because it allowed me to go on to the 7th grade, right? So it's just this powerful impact that teachers can have in our psyche and how we see ourselves. And Mr. Michaels, he's like 82, 83 years old. He actually did the kickoff for my campaign to this time around. Just wonderful gentleman, and that's the kind of the impact that I see our teachers having.
That's wonderful, and you're still connected. That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. So my next question, Dr. Rodriguez, I would like to start with you. What kitchen appliance would you say identifies your leadership style? Let's have some fun.
Oh, I am a microwave. No, just kidding. I am a refrigerator, and this is why I need other appliances in my kitchen. I like store a lot of stuff, and so I'm a refrigerator. I just like store stuff, and you know, put stuff in me, I'll put it in, but I need others in the kitchen to make it happen.
Ms. Carolyn Torres, what kitchen appliance would you say identifies your leadership style?
This is so hard for me because I don't really cook. I'll go with the French press. It's not a really appliance, but it's just one of those things that you know, it takes you have to have a skill, and it's a special occasion. So that's I don't know. I'm stumped on the appliance.
Dr. Alvarez, what kitchen appliance would you say identifies your leadership style?
I would have to say a blender. You know what the definition of leadership, servant leadership, is the ability to create a personal vision and make that personal vision a reality through the influence of followers, creating a shared vision. And I say a blender because it's all about getting all these different segments, putting them together, blending everything together, and everybody comes out the same. Shared vision.
That's true.
Dr. Alvarez's answer.
But the ingredients you're going to get from the refrigerator, right?
Definitely.
Thank you. Those are all great. I love them.
So we got one more question in this round, and then that'll lead us into our lightning round. Your last question, think about it carefully. Miss Torres, you're going to be going first. What is the most risky yet fun thing you've ever done in your life? School appropriate, please, of course.
Risky but fun?
Risky but fun, yes.
I've been bungee jumping at a carnival, so it was even more risky. I was like, I think like 18, and it was a lot of fun. And there was a video, because it was VHS then, and I lost it. But I would never do that again. I'm shaking. I don't even like rides anymore. But at the time, I was super adventurous. So yeah, I jumped off a carnival bungee thing, and
wow,
it was fun. It was like that one thing where you're just like 1, 2, 3, go, just do it. Don't think about it.
That's terrifying.
Yeah.
At a carnival.
I would never do it again. I don't even like to drive fast, so anymore.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, Dr. Rodriguez, you're up next.
I can't think of any. I am so risk averse.
Come on, Rigo. Come on.
Like, I would never do anything to risk my life because I think that just living. Can I get a pass on this and I'll come back after Alfonso?
Of course.
Okay.
Dr. Alvarez, it's been passed to you. Risky yet fun thing you've done in your life.
Risky but fun.
Yes.
I would have to say I avoid risk. I'm a social worker. You know, I'm always safe. But the thing is, risky but fun. I would have to say my first campaign. I was a first-time candidate. I had no money. I had no political endorsements. And I went in with the mentality that I was gonna win. I kept telling myself I'm gonna win, but I knew that there was always the reality that I could flop big time. And I did it. I won by 39 votes. 39 votes because I went into my last election with the mentality that I was gonna win.
Love it.
But it was funny.
I love it.
Dr. Rodriguez, are you ready?
Okay. I'm going to redefine. So for me, I think the riskiest thing I've done, quite frankly, is just not. When I got into UC Irvine, my parents and others were saying, "Rigo, get a career that you're gonna get money with," and I risked it, and I thought I'm gonna be a literature major. And I think that's the riskiest thing I've done, but it's the funnest and most rewarding thing I've ever done.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's it.
Also, chase jackrabbits on quads.
Oh, wow.
In the Arizona desert.
Not many
Oh
people
my
can say that.
goodness.
That was fun.
All right, so
These are great.
we will enter the lightning round next. During this round, we will ask the candidates to answer these questions with a 1 or 2 word answers. So we're going to go quick. This round is designed to help us get a clear idea of who you really are deep down. So you got to answer fast.
Yes, each candidate will be asked a question. We will keep the same order of candidates for this round. Candidates, please try to keep your answers short. We will start with Ms. Carolyn Torres, followed by Dr. Rigo Rodriguez, and finally Dr. Alvarez. Guys ready?
First question. What is your favorite color and movie?
Purple and mermaids.
Orange and Jason Bourne.
Oh,
Green and Purple Rain.
love it.
Oh, oh. Why not purple and Purple Rain? But anyway.
It's a contradiction, huh?
It's complexity.
What is your favorite restaurant?
Right now there's like this pozole place on McFadden in Bristol. It's really good. That's my favorite restaurant right now.
Nice.
Felix's Orange Circle. It's where I proposed to Rosalba.
Oh, I love that place.
Tacos Jalisco on 17th and Grand.
Nice.
Okay, nice. All right, next question. Do you have a childhood nickname?
Yes, I was named after my aunt, and her nickname was Getty. So I was called Getty as well. And we also called her Tane. So I'm also called Tane.
Aww.
You know?
I was called Güerito when I was growing up. And I lost it.
Growing up in a Mexican household, everybody has nicknames. So I grew up with everybody calling me Poncho.
Poncho.
Poncho. Nice to meet you, Poncho.
Yeah.
Love it.
Did they also call you Pocho?
Nah, just Poncho.
Do you have any pets? What are their names?
I have 2 pit bulls. Lola is 2.5 years, and Chula is a puppy.
Oh.
One, Bubbles, and she's barking right now, and she's a mixed dog. Mutt. It's like she knew you were talking, so she's barking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually don't have any pets. Before COVID, I was never home. I was either working or out in the community. So I was always afraid to get a pet because I knew I wouldn't be able to take care of a pet.
So the answer is no.
No.
I'm judging you.
So this next question. This next
Lightning
question
round, my
is a
friend.
little personal. So, do you snore?
Sometimes, not really. Once in a while.
Loudly, I wake up my kids in the other room.
For me, it's a yes. I have sleep apnea, and if I don't wear my apnea mask, I wake everybody up.
Okay, next question. What's worse, laundry or dishes?
Laundry. I hate laundry. Nemesis.
Second,
Laundry. Hands
laundry.
down. Yeah.
I would have to go along with laundry because it's like a 2-week process.
Oh, gosh. Unanimous.
You saw my Facebook post where I actually did all my laundry and put it all away in one day. I've never done that my whole life.
Oh, that's great.
All right. Now, we want you to think back a little bit. What was your first job, very first job as a teenager?
I took tickets for a rodeo. But it was only one day, but it's still my first job. My first like long-term job, I sold DirecTV door to door.
Wow.
Very cool.
For me, it was working at a flea market / swap meet, selling 8-track tapes and cassettes in Espanol. But making money, so that's
True.
good.
For me, I was 15 and a half when I got hired at McDonald's.
Wow. Nice. Very cool. What is your favorite carnival food?
I don't know if I like carnival foods, they're so greasy, but anything with bacon, I guess.
Nice.
Not that bacon's not greasy. It's just I like
I love the caramel
The kettle corn?
popcorn.
Kettle corn.
Kettle corn, yeah.
So I'm going to answer the question with a phrase that you might recognize. My answer is chicken wing, hot dog and bologna, chicken macaroni. Love it all.
I think that's the best answer we've heard all night. Okay, so this one's a really important one, and I know there's a lot of voters out there that want this answered. How would you rate your karaoke skills on a scale of 1 to Mariah Carey?
Like a 1. First of all, I'm too shy to do karaoke. I'm way too shy, but I can't sing. And I really love to imitate songs with like that are lyrics that are not theirs. So a 1.
Okay.
I'm a -2. I can't keep a tune. But I would give Alfonso, based on that performance, an 8. So.
I would have to probably go with about a 7, but I only do Frank Sinatra.
Whoa!
Nice.
Good news.
Nice.
Wow, impressive. I love it. Well, let's do this then. If your life had a soundtrack, which artist, album, or song would it be?
Come back to me. I have to think about it really quick.
Okay.
Earth, Wind, and Fire, September.
Nice.
I would have to go with the soundtrack for Friends.
Friends. Love it.
Very cool.
All
I
right,
thought you were
I
going to
got
say
it.
Purple Rain.
Me too. I'm surprised.
So my soundtrack, since I discovered this person is Lizzo, so Good as Hell. Oops, is hell a bad word? So, that song, that's my jam. That's a pump up song.
Okay. Love it.
All
You guys
right.
are great.
Those were amazing. You guys made it through the lightning round. That was the hardest part of the night. So we'd like to start to conclude our evening with a short segment of closing statements from the candidates to allow them to speak to all of you out there one last time tonight.
Yes, each candidate will have 2 minutes for their closing statement. We will start with Dr. Alfonso Alvarez, followed by Ms. Carolyn Torres, and finally we will conclude with Dr. Rigo Rodriguez. Dr. Alvarez, you have 2 minutes.
I'm Dr. Alfonso Alvarez. I was born and raised here in the city of Santa Ana. As I mentioned earlier, growing up, we moved around a lot. I went to Monroe, Diamond, Roosevelt, Fremont. I went to Spurgeon. I ended up eventually graduating from Santa Ana High School. The reason that I'm running is because I want to continue making a difference in a child's life. You know what, growing up the way that, one of the things that I always say is that a child can't learn if they're hungry. A child can't learn if they have housing instability. A child can't learn if they're traumatized. And growing up, like I mentioned, reflecting upon how I grew up, I experienced a lot of the same things that these kids today are experiencing. The only thing is, back then it was different, because back then we didn't know we were poor. We didn't know, nobody talked about trauma, nobody talked about mental health. And one of the things that I did want to mention as we move forward with this upcoming election, we have something very unique this election, because we have a teacher, we have a social worker, and we have a university professor. And that's a very unique combination for any school board. And I think that that's the combination that's going to help us move forward. One last thing that I just wanted to mention is that I believe that every child can succeed if they have the resources and support that they need. I look back upon my life, I went on to get my bachelor's, my master's, my doctorate. I went on to be a school board member, an elected official. So basically, I came to realize that I'm a minority among minorities. And the message that I give to our kids and to our community is that if I did it, if I grew up in your same neighborhood, if I struggled just the way that you did, if I made it, that means that you can make it too. And that's why I'm constantly out there trying to pay it forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Carolyn.
So again, I want to thank everyone for watching and you all for organizing. This has been a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to do these kinds of just get to know you things. I think, on the board, folks assume things, or they don't know, or sometimes you don't see folks as like real people with real stories and real backgrounds and an understanding of why they make decisions or say things that they say. And I think I've been able on my short time on the board to show like how invested I am in the community, and how invested I am in input from various folks that are affected by the decisions that we make. I think I've been able to display like my ability to analyze systems, to kind of cut through bureaucratic language, to kind of cut through double speak so that it makes sense for folks. I think I've been able to ask questions that people are thinking when they're watching. And I think, and because people text me, like, I was thinking that exact thing. And it's like, because, you know, when I'm on the dais, I'm there really to try to understand like what's being said, what's happening, and then make it understandable for the community as well. And I think I generally listen to folks' concerns. And I think I have I'm really a really empathetic person, and I have a really good ability to think like, how would this affect this person? What's going to happen? How might people perceive this? And be able to make a decision. I think even with the ability to look at all that, I am pretty decisive when it comes to things. And usually when I've explored everything, I'm like, this is the best way to go. And we've had to make some tough decisions, and we're going to make some tough decisions in the future. And I think the community wants folks that they understand their reasoning, that they're not going back and forth and wavering, that they know why they're thinking what they're thinking. And because people just want to know what's going to happen, even if they don't like the answer sometimes. They just want to know, because that sense of like certainty helps people lower their stress levels. And it's so important to like really understand like what stresses people out, and how as a board member to reduce people's stress levels when in this very stressful time. And so thank you for all your support, and thank you my fellow board members as well.
Thank you. Dr. Rigo.
Thank you so much, Erica, on behalf of CSEA, and Steve on behalf of SAEA for helping to organize this really unique moment. I've never been part of or seen a conversation like this before, and it just feels right. It feels wonderful to be able to have a space to share who we are in the midst of the grueling politics that happens in each election, and to these places give us an opportunity to keep humanizing ourselves in the context of, you know, the politics that sometimes can get a little tough. As I mentioned at the very beginning, I'm so privileged to be in company with both Dr. Alfonso and Carolyn Torres, because as you can see with our histories and our background, there's a common, not only experience, but a purpose. Going back to our definition, my definition of community, I think we have a common purpose around our students, around improving systems, around the way in which we collaborate with each other and with you, SAEA, CSEA, but parents as well and others. I think you'll find that we're very open. We want to hear, we want to discuss. But I also think our strength is that we process things very systematically. We look at something from different perspectives. And I think that's what it takes to be able to lead a system as complex as Santa Ana, being the 10th largest school district, over 5,000 school employees and teachers and staff. And I think it's really important for folks to understand that not only do we have the heart, but we also have, I'll say this, we also have the brains and the nerdiness, if you will, but we do bring to our work the kinds of frameworks and methods that enable us to really cut through the noise and get at the core issues. And then lastly, I think for me, what I want mostly for students and families is a holistic education. I want them to not just graduate from our school with straight A's and all that. That's important, but I want them to be healthy individuals with a plan, with something that they really are passionate about. And if we can really do that, I think that's really what I'm striving for. So thank you again for giving us this space to share.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all. And we're going to conclude our evening with those amazing closing statements. We'd like to give our warm-hearted thank you to the candidates for their time and a wonderful, fun, informative evening. We definitely learned a lot tonight about each and every one of you. thank you so much for your time, and thank you for your candor. I think that's really important for everybody to really get to know you and get to know who's working for them. We know you guys have busy schedules, especially now that we're near the end of the election. So
yes, definitely. We would also like to give our warm thanks to all of you, all the viewers at home. Thank you for spending your evening with us, and hope you had a good time. We hope you learned a little bit more tonight about our amazing school board candidates. Remember to vote before November 3rd for each one of these incumbents who have the experience, integrity, and heart. Your vote counts, and our students and family are counting on you. Thank you.
thank you all. Have a wonderful night.
Have a wonderful
Thank you,
night, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Rigo, Dr. Alvarez, and Miss Carolyn.
Yes,
Thank you. And they can also do phone banking, and they can also
Yes.
block. So every Saturday and phone banking. So make sure you contact Erica or Steve for that. So
Yes,
thank you.
please contact us. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.